Now, transmission of electrical impulse or action potential from one neuron to the next adjacent neuron. Two adjacent neurons are separated by a gap. This gap is called synaptic cleft. Then what is synapse? Synapse is the junction between two consecutive or adjacent neurons. Synapse is the point of contact between two adjacent neurons, or synapse is the region where two neurons come in contact. The synaptic cleft is the gap between the two neurons. Now, neuron means what? Cell body, then writes an axon. This is the axon, long, narrow, cylindrical. At the end of axon, it is branched, and each branch has a bulbous swollen part which is called axon terminal or synaptic knob. This is the synaptic knob, the last part of the axon, and this is the plasma membrane of the axon or neuron. Now, this neuron comes in contact with another neuron, and this is the adjacent neuron. Which part of neuron? The synaptic knob. This is the axon terminal of the adjacent neuron. This is the plasma membrane of the next neuron. So this is the narrow gap which is called synaptic cleft. Now, this is the presynaptic neuron. This is the postsynaptic neuron. This is the gap in between two neurons. This is the presynaptic neuron, ahead the synaptic cleft. This is the postsynaptic neuron, behind the synaptic cleft. So this plasma membrane is called presynaptic membrane. Plasma membrane of the presynaptic neuron, which comes in contact with postsynaptic membrane. This is the plasma membrane of the next neuron. So this membrane is called postsynaptic membrane. So presynaptic membrane, postsynaptic membrane, and the synaptic cleft in between together constitute synapse. Now, electrical impulse is transmitted from presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron through the synaptic cleft. There are two types of synapses: electrical synapse, chemical synapse. In electrical synapse, what happens? The presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane are in close proximity. There is no synaptic cleft, there is no gap. Presynaptic neuron, postsynaptic neuron are very close to each other, and there is no synaptic cleft. Electric current flows from presynaptic to postsynaptic neuron very fast, just like an electric current across the synapse. And these kind of synapses are very rare in the animal kingdom. The current flows directly from one neuron to the next across the synapse, just like an electric current. Now, chemical synapse. In case of chemical synapse, The presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane are separated by a fluid-filled gap, a fluid-filled synaptic cleft. Inside the presynaptic knob, this part is called synaptic knob. In the synaptic knob, there are round sac-like vesicles. These are the synaptic vesicles. Each synaptic vesicle contains a chemical substance which is called neurotransmitter. When axon potential or electric current reaches the axon from central nervous system, and then it is conducted to this part, synaptic knob, all the synaptic vesicles are stimulated and they move towards the membrane, towards the presynaptic membrane. Each synaptic vesicle now fuses with the membrane. You can see these are the synaptic vesicles. After the electric impulse or nerve impulse reaches the synaptic knob, the synaptic vesicle and the plasma membrane comes in contact and their membranes fuse at the point of contact. So synaptic vesicle fuses with the plasma membrane. The neurotransmitter, the chemical neurotransmitter is released into the synaptic cleft. These are the molecules of neurotransmitter. For example, acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. Now, these are the receptors. These are the receptors present on the postsynaptic membrane. These are the receptors present on the plasma membrane of the next neuron. The molecules of neurotransmitter now bind to the receptors. They bind to the receptors. As a result, the ion channels which are present in the postsynaptic membrane open. There are many ion channels which are present on plasma membranes of nerve cells. The ion channels open. As a result, positively charged sodium ions diffuse rapidly into the postsynaptic neuron. Positively charged sodium ions pass rapidly into the postsynaptic neuron. That means into the nerve fiber, into this nerve fiber. So influx of sodium ion generates action potential. The nerve fiber becomes depolarized. That means the action potential is transmitted from the presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron through the synapse or synaptic cleft with the help of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which is a chemical substance. That is why it is called chemical synapse. In this way, the impulse is transmitted from one neuron to the next neuron through electrical synapses and chemical synapses.